Welcome to Heal the World podcast, brought to you by the Healing Institute. I'm Parmelia Parham. I'm the founder and the CEO of the Healing Institute, and we are an online worldwide hub of holistic practitioners. We are out to heal the world. We really want to bring hope to the world. We want to bring all different healing modalities to the world for people. We want people to know that we are passionate about creating a positive and positive world of healing. We want people to know that there are ways to be well and stay well on your health journey. And every week, I invite a guest co-host to be part of our conversation. That's what we have. We just have a conversation about health and healing. And I have invited Steve Boucher this week to be our guest co-host. I'll introduce him in just a moment. But you might be wondering why this is so important to me. Well, we had a tragedy in our family a few years ago where my mom passed away at a very young age. She was only 61. And it was due to a medication that she had been on for many, many years. And not once did her doctor ever mention to her a side effect of this medication could, in fact, compromise her kidneys. So unfortunately, it was right before Christmas. I was 5 months pregnant with my son, and we lost her due to some complications that happened. And I just don't want that to happen to anyone else. And it was not only a tragedy that we lost her at such a young age, but my children never got to meet their grandmother. And I think that is so, so important. Grandparents play lost. So
Yeah, so we lost you right when you're saying that your children didn't have the chance to meet their grandmother.
yes, thank you, Steve. So I'm just going to put us back into, there we go. Yes, I got a message that we'd lost connection. I don't know why. But anyway, thank you for reminding me where I was. So yes, I don't want that happening to anybody else. I don't want people to have to go through that kind of a tragedy. And so I have used holistic wellness for myself for well over 20 years, and it works. And the reason that we are looking at a new way of healing in the world is because the holistic practitioners we have on the website, they are looking for the root cause of what's going on. And my lovely, wonderful guest co-hosts I have every week, that's what we talk about. We talk about the root cause. Our medical model has only dealt ever with symptoms, and we really need to find out what the root cause is. So, welcome, Steve. I'm so happy to have you here today. Steve is a transformational coach and a hypnotherapist, and we're just going to have a conversation about healing and health in those modalities. Absolutely. And he is in North Carolina. That's why you are seeing that beautiful background, because he's outside on his deck. So it's magical. It really is.
It's been so peaceful and quiet, and all of a sudden the neighbor decided to start up his mechanical tractor next to me. So it's like it'll be a moment before, I don't know if you can hear that noise, but it's slowly fading away. First of all, so sorry about your loss.
Thank
You
you.
know, it's devastating when we go through those periods. And I just did a podcast with Heidi Dunstan, and she has a program called Lean Into Grief, and she talks
Mm,
about how, she talks not to the people that are grieving, but she gives tools and advice to those that are dealing with those that grieve, right? So it's helping us because we're so ill-equipped to do that. So first of all, so sorry about that loss. And you know what I found that is transformational with people is that those that have suffered loss, that have reframed it, that have come through and done something worthwhile, it turns that tragedy into a treasure. You're able to help others in this journey, and if you help one person, right, one person avoid that, it's a life well lived. and I'm sure you're reaching
Absolutely.
thousands.
And I have to admit, Steve, this is my why for creating the Healing Institute and looking at it from a virtual process and also global, looking at how we can spread this information and education out to the world, that there are many well and stay well on our health journey. And, let's face it, we're all on a health journey. So let's make it a proactive one.
And not only a health journey, but an awareness journey. We're on
Yes.
this on this path to learn and to grow, and most of the time we don't understand what it is that um, there's more information coming. And I've always been fascinated with science because we think something's true until they think something else is true.
That's
and
correct.
and
Yes.
and our Western medicine system is failing us miserably. Like United States spends more money per capita on health, and we have in some key metrics, which we are the sickest nation, and there's something wrong there. And when you mention this, what caught my attention is when you talk about getting to the root cause. That's deep within my psyche, because I don't
Mhm.
you know the the method now is treat the symptom, right? Treat the symptom, and then when that medication quits working, let's give you a new medication.
Or
And
add the medication to that
yes,
already medication, which is just compounding the
and,
problem.
and so I went through, and they diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, and they also diagnosed me with so many different things, and I fixed it. I went to a holistic doctor. I ended up I ended up being very going through doctor to doctor to doctor until I found somebody that would work with me, that would hear me, that says, I don't want a pill to keep me from feeling, I want to be cured. I want to get rid of whatever's causing me to feel this way. And I was able to do it. And also, I was gluten intolerant.
Mhm.
I cured that as well. So these things are real. I mean, it's not, I would have my nephew plant a little bit of flour, a little bit of gluten in my food to see if I would react, because I could not believe that I was allergic to food. And,
Yes.
and it worked every time. No, it was not psychological, and it was a physical reaction, absolute strong physical reaction. So when I came out of that, it was something biological. It was some,
Yeah.
because the process for cure was um, antibiotic, antifungal, and then diatomaceous earth. And it's like I did that for a long period of time, like 9 months, and it's hard to find a doctor that will work with you on that. So
Yes. But
and
we
it's
have to know ourselves, and that you make a very, very good point. We just have to know who we are ourselves,
mhm.
and be strong in. And you were strong in looking for that doctor that you knew you could work with.
Well, it's
I also had a very similar experience. Well, not similar, but an experience where the doctor I had at the time wanted to put me on a cholesterol medication just because my levels were up, with my last labs that he had seen. And I said, no, I know how to get it down. I know what I've been not doing. I haven't been exercising. I haven't been watching my sugar intake. I know how to get that down. And I just, but often people are searching and they don't know and they haven't done their own research, which I think is just so important always to do your research. And so they just do what the doctor says because that's how we've been raised. And you're right, it's not just your country and my country. I'm in Canada, for those who are listening. Um, it's not just our countries. I've talked to holistic practitioners all over the world. It is the whole world's medical model that is broken and it's not working. And it's because that kind of medical model that only looked at symptoms. It didn't look at the root cause.
and we can also bring this into the space of mental wellness, because it's
Absolutely.
because that system as well is, it's like there's an epidemic of loneliness, they're saying now, and it's like the
Yes.
disconnect. And I find that fascinating, because we have this technology, like we can connect across across time and across countries, and have this conversation. And so to me, I know that there's a difference of in-person connection, but if you find people that are truly authentic, that you can talk to, that they do lift your spirit, you feel good being in their presence, and that's the kind of tribe that you want. And so what I realized is that we can make a shift in life. And you started off the conversation talking about being positive, and
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
something that I'm really, actually, I'm studying that. It's called solution oriented therapy, and it's the positive focus, behind, Milton Erickson's work and hypnotherapy and all of that. And it doesn't, most people have a misconception about hypnotherapy. What it is, it's the power of belief, right?
Absolutely.
It's the power where you place your focus. It's the power where you put your intention, and and we can influence our body so much by where we place our attention. And so I got so many stories around that.
Well, I love what you're saying, and it's so true. I mean, you're in North Carolina. I'm on the west coast of Canada. We have never met in person, but we have interacted on a number of different networking platforms and places. And I feel like we're soulmates
Yeah, yeah,
because
you have
we're
it.
connecting at that energetic level.
Yeah, and it's a kindness, right? So if someone is authentic, if they're in a space of non-judgment, it puts you in a place of security. It puts you in a place of peace. And if you're in that place of peace, you can be yourself, right? It's like
Absolutely.
we encourage one another. And and what I find interesting, and this is where the world's falling apart, really, is if we can seek understanding with one another, right? Seek where we agree, and try to understand what each other's saying, we will find unity.
Yes.
And there are some that are kind of scared, and they will look for what's wrong in a statement, because and they will find it with me all the time. I don't even say the words that I think I'm saying, and I go back and look at the replay, and it's like, oh, I said a word I didn't mean to.
Well, I just quickly want to acknowledge we have a guest, Rita Denoye. So, welcome, Rita. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. And she's made a comment called Powerful. So, she's enjoying our conversation, Steve. Absolutely. Yes. Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about what do you do as a transformational coach? What does that mean? You know, we hear that word a lot. Transformational. We're going through the transition. Transformational. And I'd love to hear your definition of what that is.
It's a word that's used a lot, and I'm sitting out here in nature. It's the concept of the butterfly, right? It's like the butterfly
Mhm.
will go through a mess, and in in our lives we will carry certain beliefs, we will carry certain attitudes, we will have certain habits that will kind of dictate the way that we live, the way that we feel, the way that we respond, all of these inborn habits, inborn beliefs. And what I found, and this was an awakening moment for me, because I'm a sensitive person, meaning that um, when I feel the chemistry within my body, I feel it. I actually feel it. So I feel,
Mhm.
if I eat
Mhm.
sugar, I feel sugar, and I don't like I don't eat much sugar, but I would eat it if I could, but it has a bad reaction with me. Um, but also, I don't like conflict for that very reason. I
Yeah.
don't like anger. I don't. Those are things that I do not enjoy that chemistry. And so I was in a situation where um, my thoughts, they started looping with
Mm.
a
Mhm.
catastrophic outcome. So I put myself in this biological state of fear, and I was projecting the worst possible thing could happen, and then that feeling was coming in, right? All of that stress, the anxiety, and the more that I thought, the worse things became. And finally, the self judge said, "You're done. Your life is over. You cannot recover from this, right?" And it's like, and I felt like I was, and that was the most beneficial thing to ever happen in my life, because I was in such a state of despair that I said, I cannot live this way anymore.
Mhm.
Right. And so I scanned the horizon of different ways to stop the pain. And I said, you know what? I'm just, I'm going to fire those critical thoughts. Right. It's like, if there's a judge in there, you do a terrible job, because not only do you judge, but if I succeed, then without even skipping a beat, the judgment comes back again, and it's judging something
Yes.
else.
Yeah.
And I go, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And it's like, I
Good
had
on
that
you.
idea, which was, you're fired. You're doing a bad job. And it's like, and I invited in what you might call a spiritual perspective.
Mhm.
And in the process that I did to do that was just simply, it's like I just imagined like a clear, like a mirrored cylinder shell that was just empty, right, devoid of all my beliefs, all of my everything that I believed to be true. Because part of my conflict that I was going through was that the basic values that I held were being violated: honesty,
Yes.
justice,
Yeah.
kindness, all those. And and so I had this mirrored surface, and it's like I even had wounds on it. Like, there were places where there wasn't, and I just polished that up. And in my mind, I just imagined just polishing that up and just making it nice and perfect. And then I put love and light in there. And
Mm.
when I did that, it's like that's that spiritual focus.
Yes.
When I did that, I expected some sort of judgment, like like agreement. Yes,
Mhm.
that critical voice was that critical thought that was bad, or that judge within you is bad. There was no judgment, absolute acceptance. But there was a peace there that was
Mhm.
something that I was just blown away by, and from that place of peace, you get a little bit of clarity. And what I realized is even that egoic self recognized the authority, the
Mhm.
strength of that the spiritual perception. And so when I speak to people about transformation, it's not really changing them from anything that they are. It's reminding them of how amazing and beautiful this life experience is, even if we have some suffering in there, even if we have a little bit of pain, because it's usually on the other side of that pain that the most amazing thing will come into your life, right?
Oh,
Pain
so
is a
true.
signal. Pain is a
Yes.
signal that says
Yeah.
something's not right.
Something's not right. Yes. Same as fear. Fear is telling you that something's not right. And you referenced that earlier when you were explaining how that came about, your transition came about. And often, we're not taught to embrace the fear or look at the fear to see what is it trying to teach us. Where, our instinct immediately is to get away from the fear, not have the fear. And unfortunately, I think this too many people are living in that state of fear. They're fearful for this, they're fearful for that, they're fearful for so many things. And so that then is like a vicious circle. And it's because that's the vibration you're giving out. And we know that through the law of attraction. So, what that vibration you give out is the vibration you're attracting. So, to change that up completely, just like you did, I like the analogy of the sphere and then light. Of course, light always is going to bring a more positive aspect to our lives. I can earlier today when we first started talking, there was a beautiful light that was coming behind you and the trees, and it was almost like heaven sent, I would call it, where it was just shining down just behind you. And I thought, okay, this is going to be an amazing conversation because we have spirit and God here with us today. And I think often we really need to embrace that when we're having those difficulties, when those issues are showing up for us, and those negative things. And also, our beliefs are so important. If we believe that something's not going to be right, it won't be right. If we believe something will be right, it will be right. So let's change that to having a positive influence on our lives versus a negative influence on our lives.
I love that you talk about the positive influence, and that's what I do with my clients all the time. So it subconsciously, it's the idea that we can shift our emotional state, right? Depending upon what there's two things: what we place our focus on, and then two, how we frame it within our mind, right? Because we can give
Yes.
it any meaning we want to. But if you were to think of like a moment in your time, just some memory or some experience that brought you a feeling of positivity or joy or safety or security, whatever, what a feeling that just was amazing. Some experience that you had that was just amazing in this world. I had somebody share that. Is there something that comes up for you that you
Oh,
can?
absolutely.
What would that be? So tell me about
And the setting that you are sitting in reminded me of that. As soon as we were looking at that light that was shining behind you. So when I was 16, I had the opportunity to go to camp here on Vancouver Island because I was living here. I grew up here. And so the camp actually isn't far from where I live now. Um, and it's no longer a church camp, but it was an opportunity for um, a girls' church group. So I was able to go to that camp. And we were having evening vespers by the campfire. So it was dark. The sun had set. It was the summer, but the sun had set. And there was this beautiful light just kind of where the trees opened that came through. And it was now I had gone to Sunday school my whole life. and church my whole life. You know, and I always say my parents lived their religion. They didn't, you know, showcase their religion or their spirituality, but they lived. They were good people. And so I had never had that kind of spiritual experience before. And so that's what's reminding me of the setting where you're sitting, was that. And I think of that quite often because that was my divine guidance, I believe, the very
So
first time
what
I
was
was.
what was the feeling, or what was the value that, what did you experience in that moment? What was
Love, pure love, just so much joy. It was like I was vibrating. So much joy, so much love, that I have to admit, when I came back to reality and got home after that experience, it was different. Like I was different, but trying to then relate to sort of ordinary life. So I certainly understand people who've had near death experiences when they don't want to come back. Yeah, it was pure love and joy. It was just delightful. My heart was full, completely full.
Oh, that's amazing. And so that's the focus of the solution oriented therapy, which is, if you can be in that space, right? If you can really remember that experience where you felt the love and you felt the joy,
Mhm.
um, in that protected space, sometimes you can consider a problem.
Yes.
It's the invitation to, if it's helpful, and only if it's helpful,
Hmm.
to allow whatever it is that you're considering to come into the space. So you're not seeking the problem. You're inviting it in, and realizing, okay, there's also a solution. When you invite it into a space of that much power and that much joy, that much love, the solution will come with the problem, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like all of
Yes.
a sudden, most of the time the problem just melts away because it's so insignificant compared to that feeling of love, right? So
Yes, I agree 100%. So we have another guest who's popped on, Sean Michael. He said, I've always heard pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
mhm.
Yes, most definitely.
Sean is a fellow coach and a friend of mine from the Global Summit Events community that I host, and he always has such wisdom. He's a very kind man, and
Yes,
always
I
appreciate him.
see Sean's posts a lot on LinkedIn. So thank you for joining us today, Sean. Um, Well, this has just been such a rich conversation, Stephen. I just love it. Tell our audience then, when a client works with you, do you have some client testimonials when a client works with you? What would the results be?
So the results, the first of all, the type of person that would want to come see me is somebody that, um, is either they're kind of stuck, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So they've got the answer. They might have everything, may be in alignment with a good life, but they just feel like something's missing, or maybe they're just not as happy as they want to be. There's something that they feel is different from where they're called to be,
Right.
where they intuitively know they should be. So those are the type of people that I seek, and it's people that are they just need that safety and security to process something.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's no judgment. We don't go back and do the therapy. Some of my clients don't even they don't verbalize the problem out loud.
Right. Hmm.
We'll have a session, and they won't. I ask, is it something that you can share? And if it's not, that's fine. We'll go through the whole process as well. And most, almost, almost always, but not always. Sometimes the solution will come later on.
Yeah.
But there's been quite a few people that have had very those aha moments that kind of
Yes.
they leave, and it's like it's a big change for them. And other people, it may marinate for a little while. The solution may come
Hmm.
up, in a day or 2 days or 10 days, or there are some that resist, and it's okay. That's like
Yeah.
they come to prove that the problem is real, and to me, the problem is real. The problem is real, but it's like, if you think about something and you don't feel well, then we've got to practice shifting that focus to what allows you to feel better. And people that are really in kind of a difficult place, it's hard for them to make that shift. And so, there are instances where somebody's biochemistry is off, and I can't help them. The only people that I
Yes.
can help are people that are able to handle this on their own, right?
Right.
So they need the ability to self-regulate. They need the ability to, to make personal choices, things like that. I can kind of guide and help them along the way. And my goal is I don't like the therapies that I go for a long time. It's like the biggest compliment to me as I was coaching someone, and they said, I'm fixed. It's like I fixed the problem. I don't need to see you anymore. But they brought me their son,
Yeah.
and that was such a huge compliment that it's like, okay, I felt kind of a little bit of a loss that, oh, I really enjoyed this client, but then when their son came to see me, it was just a beautiful transition of helping someone.
Yes, I love that. That's one of my greatest feelings of accomplishment too, is when I have a session with a client. I usually have more than one session, and I have packages of sessions with my body code clients. But when they go, well, I'm good. I'm like, great.
Mhm. And
This
that's
is
why we do
perfect.
what we do, because it's
Yes,
the belief that the healing is there.
yes,
If you find the root cause and you address that, it can change everything. And this is something it's fascinating. Like most of the time in an emotional space, we have the simplest beliefs that are there. It's like the belief is, I'm not lovable, I'm not
hmm
good enough,
I'm not worthy.
I'm not
Yeah,
worthy. And that voice, that idea is framed by a child's mind, a very
yes,
small child, and it's framed, that child, that inner child has the emotional tools of a child. And so, that the inner child's the one that throws the temper tantrums when something doesn't go the right way.
yes, that's right. So even though it's good to let our inner child out every now and again, we need to examine what is that telling us? Why is that happen? Why is that happening? And curiosity always, I believe, it's so important to be curious, asking and being aware that earlier, aware of why you're feeling that way or what that emotion is or how that's showing up for you. Awareness is in my book is almost number one. And then being curious. I often say what you got in trouble for as a child is your gifts. So I was always in trouble for being too sensitive. Stop crying, you're way too sensitive. And I was in trouble for asking too many questions. Well, now that bodes well for what I do. Definitely being sensitive, and you are a sensitive soul, so
Mhm.
you can relate to that. And also being curious and asking questions.
And those are the gifts. It's sad to say, but a lot of times sensitive people will end up with someone that's dominant. Someone that sometimes they use terms like narcissistic or something
Mhm.
like that. Um, and it's strange because that's such a spectrum of being, right? So it's like
Yes, right.
it's hard to put labels on anything and actually have it be accurate all the time. But there are some that label kind of fits, and it's when you're in that place of insecurity. So the sensitive, I always have this belief that the sensitive individuals most often have a difficult life. And if we, if some people think in this idea of kind of, we choose our human experience, and it's like some people will struggle with the idea, well, why would I choose this difficulty, or why would I choose this pain? But the thing is a sensitive soul, and the strongest sensitive soul would say, I wouldn't want anyone else to experience this.
Yeah,
And the second thing is by transforming that into a positivity, or transforming it into love or a good life, you're taking that darkness or that sadness, and you're shifting that, you're transforming that into something positive. And then
absolutely.
and now
Yes.
you've got a net positive that can actually kind of, cancel out some of the negativity in the world. So we're making the world a better place, and we
Yeah.
get a double fold action on that.
And we're showcasing to other people as to how this can be and how we can take something when we were, in a dark spot. That happened to me over 20 years ago, very dark spot, but did my own searching and wasn't doing the work I'm doing now, had no clue that that's how my life was going to unfold. But, I mean, my life is just so full, and I feel so fulfilled. And the work that I do, well, it's not work. I love what I do. So, people say, are you still working? And I'm like, well, it's really not work because I love what I'm doing. And I love being able to, to help my clients. And now with the bigger our larger Heal the World and the Healing Institute, we really are trying to make an impact on the world for health and how to shift that up.
Yeah, I believe
So
it comes
thank you so much, Steve. I just want to show people how to get a hold of you. So here's Stephen's. Hey, come on.
and I always confuse everybody because I go by Steve or Steven, but my email is steve@mybest-life.com.
Okay.
What I was going to say
For some
is
reason
that
it's not wanting to pop up here for
it's
some
there.
reason.
It's on my end, so I see it.
Perfect. So just so delightful to have you having this conversation with you today. And, we're going to go back through the show afterwards into the event and comment. We want to re-comment on all of your comments because that helps the algorithm. And any questions people have, we will answer them. Sometimes they don't show up in the chat. Sometimes they just show up in LinkedIn. And I will be reposting it this afternoon. So again, people see it later on. So I often go into the event later today or tomorrow and just see who else has popped in and made comments so that we can.
I wanted to extend the invitation to anybody out there because the idea is you don't have to have anything wrong to have a connection call with me. I do enjoy speaking to other people, finding out about who you are, and just having that connection and finding out if we're meant to be in alignment on either an idea or some effort or something else like that. So I'm happy to have that connection call with anyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that because I do the same. I love to have connection calls with people, just to have a conversation, see if it's the right fit, because that is truly part of my values, that it has to be the right fit for us all. So we are creating a community of expert health practitioners. We do customize our unique treatments to meet all of our clients' requirements. Our vision is to really send the message out to heal the world. And our motto is service with love. So if you know of anyone who would be interested in watching our podcast, please send it out to your community and all your connections and let people know that we are here healing the world. Thanks again so much, Stephen. It was delightful to have you. And thank you to all of our guests that popped on today. And we'll see you next Friday on Heal the World Show podcast.
And thank you for the invitation. And thank you so much for